Yo, it's Iddris. I am one half of F1 or F Off, your audio pit stop for F1 news, interviews, and race reviews. And it's just me today, flying solo. Why is that, you ask? Well, because your boy Gabe, it was his birthday last week, and he selfishly decided to take some vacation time. That's a joke. No, I'm actually really happy he took some vacation time because he needed it. You know, this guy is the heart and soul of the pod. He does a lot of work. Like creatively, technically, behind the scenes, writing scripts. I'm gonna do the same too, but he's the guy. Like he's the GOAT. He's my go-to, right? But yeah, he chose to go off on this weekend where there was a really exciting race, and mixed in with all this has been all this Kendrick and Drake beef drama. Guys, I cannot tell you how hard it was to focus on not just F1 stuff, right? And on top of it, it's a sprint race weekend, right? So there's 4 events I have to watch if I really want to be fully caught up, right? But there's that, and then there's Kendrick dropping Euphoria, and then he drops again with 616, and then Drake responds with what was it? I think it was Family Matter, and then Kendrick comes back swinging again with the haymaker with Meet the Grams, and then there's Not Like Us the night after, and the night after that, there's the Heart Part 6 from Drake. Like, oh my God, there's so much going on where I really couldn't even focus on Formula One. But that's what we're here to talk about today. But for those of you that are hip-hop heads and want to talk about music stuff, please hit us up in our DMs because we love talking about all things, not just Formula One. And, this Drake and Kendrick beef is something that... did not have on my bingo card for 2024, but I'm really glad it's popping off because some things have needed to be said for a while. So, so this weekend was the Miami GP. So real quick, shout out to Miami GP. For those of you that have been listening to the pod for the last 2 seasons now, Gabe and I, we weren't the biggest fans of the pod, not the pod. We weren't the biggest fans of this fake marina, like racetrack, right? It's a street course. And you know what? It's not that bad. It's not as bad as I remember it being. And I think the same holds true for Vegas. I think when there's something new, I'm just a hater. I'm just gonna be like, nope, I don't like it, right? When it comes to Formula One. And I think that showed. So I will eat my words. I think this race this last weekend was really, really fun to see, and I'm excited to see what else happens over the next coming seasons, because if Miami continues to produce good races like this, granted, it was a safety car that kind of really contributed towards Lando being able to, get his first win in the bag, but, still, there's a lot of stuff that can be that can occur at this place, at this track, and it's just so cool to see. Okay, so yeah, let's just kind of hop right into it. Sprint qualifying, so we kick off with sprint quali, and yeah, it feels, this is my problem with sprint race weekends, right? As exciting as it is that you have like racing events going on at all hours of the day, all times of the day, what can be unfortunate is that things happen like so long ago, right? Even though it's not really so long, it's like 2 days, right? But you forget from sprint quali to sprint race to quali to race of like what the exact order of things was, right? So you got to take notes. You got to take notes, especially when you have a podcast. But in sprint quali, the big shock was Mercedes just completely fumbling the bag. Like both the Mercedes, like Lewis and George, did not make it out of SQ2. Anytime I see that, I just think of Squirt. Anytime I see like the SQ, right? Or sequel, I get whatever. But yeah, so they didn't make it through, and I guess that's to no one's surprise, maybe? I don't know. Like, you guys know that I'm a Mercedes fan, and I'm a Mercedes stan. And it's more actually that I'm like a really big Lewis Hamilton fan, right? Like Lewis going to Ferrari next year, like, y'all, let me tell you, I'm gonna be wearing my Mercedes shirt at first race. Mercedes shirt comes off and it's a Ferrari shirt, like in total I'll be wearing $500 worth of shirts because that's just how expensive those things are. But I digress. But yeah, it's Mercedes just, man, it's a car that they have, that's for sure. It can drive, it starts up, and then it can go up to a certain speed, and it can slow down, it can, has brakes. It's a car. It's not a very good race car, though, unfortunately, and I think we saw that with just how both Lewis and George are struggling to make ends meet with that car, right? It's just really horrid, that whole platform. It's better than what they've had previously in seasons past, but other teams have had a better working concept and platform that they've been able to work with, and it's not like they all just stood still at the end of last season, right? Or at the beginning, whenever they started designing their cars for this season. And just moving from there, it puts them in a position where it looks like they made no progress whatsoever. Granted, now they're the fourth best team on the grid, and I guess that's pretty good if, because Haas and Sauber, I'm sure, are looking at Mercedes being like, oh man, I wish we were fourth best team on the grid, right? But for Mercedes of their caliber, of their winning pedigree, to be fourth best or best of the rest, Formula 1.5 championships or champion, sorry. Yeah, that's rough. It's rough. It's hard to see this fall from grace. But I guess you're kind of used to it now, right? Max in the Red Bull during sprint quali was looking kind of vulnerable from the McLarens, right? And this was the weekend where McLaren brought in their upgrade package, right? So this thing is looking strong. This new McLaren package, it's looking sporty, it's looking fit, it's looking like it can get the job done, that sort of thing. And I'm gonna put a pin in this. Hopefully I remember to come back to this at the end of the pod. Lando's team, or the McLaren technical team, was talking about how the package that they brought to Miami is actually better suited for other tracks in the calendar. So I hear that and I'm like, nani? So that's actually a really, really great thing to hear. This means we are in for a very spicy, exciting season. Maybe full of some sizzling hot fajitas. Your boy Danny Rick. Everyone's been saying he's washed. Oh, Danny Rick, go to IndyCar. Danny Rick, go to NASCAR. Granted, we've been saying he should go to IndyCar, but not because we think he's bad. I just think he'd be awesome at IndyCar or NASCAR, and I think he would bring a lot of really good attention to those sports in the States here, right? So that's why I think he'd be so fun here. I think he has a personality for it. Formula One, I think, tends to be a bit more mum on the personalities, on people being able to really show their full selves and be like their authentic selves, right? I think IndyCar may allow that a bit more. For sure, NASCAR, right? Like, you can go out there, you can swing on people, right? Like, oh my God, Matt Kenseth, I think, whoever it was that got into the tussle a few years back after like an intentional crashing out of the other driver. That was spicy. But yeah, he made a really good showing in sprint quali, and that was impressive. That was really, really, really great to see. I think he started P4 on the grid, or it might have been P3. Let's just double check this real quick. Yeah, sprint grid. Yeah, sprint grid. He started P4. Yeah, so excellent. That was great for him. Really happy to see that he still got it, man. Like that guy who works at the corner store who used to play bass with insert famous musician's name here, right? And they're like, oh, I still got it. And they break out their bass and they're like really sick at it. And you're like, oh, I did not believe that. But anyways, so that was great to see. So we have our grid all set up from sprint quali for the sprint race. And yeah, things got wild right off jump, man. That first corner, this whole weekend, that first corner just, I think, is cursed. Because there was another really wild incident that happened at the beginning of the race that we'll talk about with your boy Checo Perez. And yeah, we're gonna have to cover that a little bit. But yeah, as far as the sprint race is concerned, right off jump, you have 4 cars going into the first turn. So you have Norris, Stroll, Alonso, Hamilton lined up in that order, right, from left to right. and Alonso got squeezed hard, and it sucked to see. It was really exciting to see the four go in deep into the corner to make the turn, but inevitably there was going to be an issue, and Norris gets knocked out. Stroll gets damaged. Alonso gets damaged. I think Hamilton was okay, but yeah, not a good look for everyone involved there. I think a lot of the blame was falling towards Hamilton for that, but I guess you can chalk it up to racing incident, especially on the first lap, just getting started off there. Danny Rick, he was doing pretty well. He was up in the third, but back down to fourth. I think he actually ended up finishing the race in fourth. Yeah, he ended up finishing the race in fourth. This was a 19-lap sprint race, so out of a 57 full lap race for the actual Sunday race, but it ended up being good. It was fun. I think sprint races are starting to grow me a little bit. I think it just depends on the track, depends on where it is. Like Brazil's a good one. I think Miami has shown that it can be kind of an interesting locale for the sprint race, so we'll see what happens. I think what they're doing now is they're just picking random tracks across the calendar and seeing where can we put the sprint race in, kind of shoehorn it in there. Does it fit? Does it work? But keep the ones that do work, like Brazil. That'd be great. Interlagos. Trying to think of the track name. Yeah, K-Mag. Oh my god. Okay, so this is something we need to talk about too. Kevin Magnussen was doing a lot this weekend. I mean, he had a penalty, right? And he gets a 10-second penalty. I forget who it was that he just just biffed right into. He's just like, oh, I don't see a car there. Boom, right? And it was really, really awful. So he gets a 10-second penalty. And recall that for sprint races, the top 8 positions are the only places that get actual points, right? So K-Mag is like, okay, all right, I know what to do. Let me just hold up everyone and just get penalties along the way, right? So because he gets a 10-second penalty, like the field was spread. It wasn't spread super wide, right? It was a pretty narrow, thin spread. So 10 seconds just instantly moved him from I think he was running 8th or 9th. And then he's automatically in last place. Like there's no way in a sprint race that you'll be able to gain that kind of time distance or time gap on the people driving behind you, right? So, he's just holding people up. He gets 3 penalties in the sprint race. 3, y'all. 3 penalties, right? And each of those penalties are going to come with super license points, right? Penalty points on the super license against him, right? So if you get a certain number in the year, you start facing some consequences and penalties. Pardon the pun, or me saying penalties so many times, but whatever. You guys get what I'm saying. But yeah, Kevin Magnussen, just remember what I said here. He's this is his weekend. He's like, let me do as much for the team as I can, because he was doing all that just to help Hulkenberg out, who was up ahead of him, to actually get some points for the team. So he's playing the team game, which is cool. Right? Danny Rick, like I said earlier, he finished P4. Great for him in VCARB. Also that VCARB livery. Ooh, it was given GTA Vice City vibes, and I love it. Like, I love seeing how every single team was leaning into the Vice City vibes, the Miami vibes, and they all kind of had a little bit of flair on it. I think Mercedes had their driver poster with Lewis and George on Instagram that showed them they had the block text from GTA. It looked very similar to that. So I might be conflating that with something else, or mixing that up with something else. Sorry, but it was fun to see all the different liveries, special liveries, that sort of thing. Checo had a deck of cards on his helmet, on his racing helmet, so that was pretty cool to see. Ferrari, they teased everyone this entire last week or last 2 weeks, and it did not deliver. I'm sorry, guys. I know HP is a new title sponsor for the team, and I know you want to have splashes of blue in there, but just commit. If you're gonna make it blue, just go full. Just go full board, right? Personally, I've said this previously in the pod, I think Ferrari needs to go with an all yellow livery. And actually, okay, so what they have right now, right? Just swap the yellow and red just for one race. I think they'll look so sick with yellow jumpsuits, racing suits. with yellow racing suits. I think that would be so cool, right? It's just something different, right? Gabe talked about this in the reel we posted last week about how if you're gonna commit, just do it, just go full board, right? Don't do this thing where you're like, well, we want to keep the essence of the red, but everyone knows Ferrari's red. You know what I mean? It's not like we would see you guys in yellow or blue and just be like, oh no, well, red is up for grabs now. Like, no, everyone always assumes by default red is going to be Ferrari, right? Maybe that's why Alfa Romeo changed, or Sauber, changed from that really nice looking like wine cherry mahogany red from last season to this. Granted, I mean, they had new sponsors coming and everything, but still, like, come on, Ferrari, just throw us something here. Throw us something. But VCAR, shout out to them for like really leaning into it. That livery was beautiful. One of the most fun looking cars on the grid. Just love looking at the thing. It's eye candy. Anytime that thing is coming down the straight, love it. All right, so yeah, so from the sprint race, actually, you can just assume who won, right? You all know that it was Verstappen who won the sprint race, and Leclerc. I was gonna say Leclerc. Leclerc ended up P2, and Perez rounded out your podium with third place. You had Ricciardo, and Sainz, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Gasly, Sargent, Zhou, Russell, Albon, Bottas, Ocon, Hamilton, and P16, Alonso, Magnussen, and you have Stroll and Norris, who weren't able to finish the race because of that lap 1 incident where they went 4 wide into turn 1. So yeah, kind of sucky all around. That really destroyed things for Aston Martin. They weren't really able to get good data or anything like that, right? Because that's what Lance is there for, right? I don't know if you guys all read that last week or heard that last week, that Lance is he's the technical guy of the team who provides really invaluable, crucial data. But okay. So moving on from the sprint race, we go over to qualifying. Yeah, quali was pretty fun. Pretty straightforward. I don't think there were any major shocks from what I recall. And looking over my notes here, yeah, there wasn't anything wild too that I jotted down. But I think I just kind of noted that it was tough to see Danny Rick not get the position that I thought he deserved, right? Just based off the showing that he had in sprint quali and sprint race. And that's the thing about sprint racing, right? Versus the actual race. It's kind of like, all right, so this is for I'm going to level with y'all here. This is for my nerd fam. This is for my Super Smash Brothers family. It's like playing a time match versus a stock match. Both are valid, right? But they both serve different purposes, right? Like a stock match would be like, all right, no weapons. We're playing Omega stage. Each have 3 lives, and it's just who survives, right? Who loses all through their lives first. They're the loser, right? Whereas time is about get as many knockouts as possible, right? So you can there's a bit of a different strategy there, right? And it's kind of the same thing here with the sprint race versus the regular race. Sprint race, it's about just getting the strategy right off jump, capitalizing on mistakes immediately, right? Whereas the race on Sunday is really about more of like that chess, right? That chess game where you're really trying to figure out, how can I capture the queen? And that happens through tire strategies, that happens through pit stop strategies, that happens through safety cars, or crossing your fingers for safety cars, which we'll talk about in just a second. Okay, yeah, so quali was pretty straightforward. Max just came in with the pole position of 127.24. Charles Leclerc, he gets 127.38. So Max had a good healthy amount on Leclerc, almost 2/10. And Sainz rounded it out with the top 3 positions with the 127.4, almost a 127.5. And from there, it just it started trickling down from there. We unfortunately in the first round of qualifying, you lost Zhou, Magnussen, Ricciardo, Sargent, and Bottas. And Bottas, it hurts me. It hurts me so much because he's such a good driver, but man, he just cannot. That car just can't do things for him. You know, it's just not where it needs to be, unfortunately. In Q2, we have Alonso, Albon, Ocon, and Gasly, and Stroll leaving us. They just weren't able to cut the mustard, unfortunately. Like the real surprise one there was Alonso, given his form in previous race weekends, right? And that Stroll just finished that much further ahead of him. And then rounding out the bottom 5 of the top 10, I think I mentioned the top 5 earlier. You got Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Russell, Piastri, and Norris. And like I said, Mercedes is really 4th best team here at this point on the grid. They're no longer the championship contenders, title fighters that we have come to expect, I guess at least prior to 2022, because the assumption was there in 2022 that, oh yeah, Mercedes will be right there, right? But alas, we all know how that season went. But yeah, anyways, so moving on to the race, the grid is all set, and yeah, wowza. I just have a couple of things I really want to call out here because these are more the talking points. But Logan Sargent, my heart breaks for him. This is his home race. This is his hometown, right? He's from Miami, right? I mean, he's got that GQ, excellent GQ video interview where he's talking about his favorite things, and that's how I know that he loves to drink Arnold Palmer's, right? And that also, I think he doesn't go anywhere without the sunglasses, and that he loves wearing Miami Heat like jerseys. Like that's kind of his thing. And his favorite movie is Wolf of Wall Street. That's the other thing. He likes to watch that. Which is interesting too, because when it came out, hold on, I gotta look this up real quick. Wolf of Wall Street came out in 2013. Logan Sargent is 23. Logan was watching this when he was a kid. Who let him? Oh no. I mean, that's assuming that he watched it when it came out. But Logan, that's naughty. That's mischievous. Okay, buddy. I see you. But anyways, yeah, so Logan Sargent, I wanted to talk about that one right off the jump because I like the kid. I admire him. I think he's really doing the best he can. But it's unfortunate just how many strokes of bad luck this guy gets, all right? Like, so if you didn't watch the race, Magnussen just biffed right into the side of Sargent. He was coming up alongside him, and they're going into a right-hand turn. You have Sargent on the outside, and Sargent had the apex. He had position there. Magnussen did not, and Sargent was closing the door, and Magnussen still tried to squeeze through, and that spun both him and Sargent out, right? And Sargent the rear end just goes right into the wall, like pretty hard too. And the car's out, and he didn't finish. And it sucks because I want this guy to get some decent results and to get some decent experience in Formula One, because I don't know if he will be back next season. And I kind of feel like he won't, given all the rumors and whatnot about, Williams really trying to elevate themselves, right? And if they're going to elevate themselves, that means they're going to bring on Adrian Newey, right? If Newey's even interested in going to the team, because that's a whole other thing too, that lots of updates on that, right? But you have Alex Albon, who I think is a really strong quality driver who can deliver results, right? And they have Logan Sargent, who isn't able to really deliver the results like Albon is, right? So if you were making some good inroads this season, right, the conversation about whether or not he is signed on again for next year would look different, right? So yeah, just kind of a bummer. Okay, so the thing that happened right off jump, you have Sergio Checo Perez just completely almost dive bomb and take out Max, like lap 1, turn 1, dude. Like it was wild. I mean, he looked like a missile just shooting through there. Like if he had hit, he would have collected Max. He would have been out. I think there would have been some debris on Leclerc, maybe taking Leclerc out, and Norris may have been in the firing line there as well. So, like, amazing that no one crashed, right, or got any kind of damage, and B, like, that had the crash happen, you know, didn't get injured, because it was that, it looked that wild, right? And it was even to the point that there's a meme flying around of Max's facial reaction when they're watching the replay in the cooldown room, because, spoiler alert, Max Verstappen ends up on the podium, but what position? We'll talk about that. But ends up on the podium, and they're showing the replay of what happens in lap 1, and it happens like they show like the Checo dive bomb, and then Max just looks back at Norris, and he's like, that was very fun. Yeah, okay, so you get Checo Perez's dive bomb. Logan Sargent, you know, like I said, I don't know if he gets back next season. Magnussen, okay, let's talk about Magnussen again. Boy, oh boy. This guy, he's just like, yo, if I'm not going to get a race win, let me get every single penalty I can every single weekend. How about that, y'all? Right? And Haas is like, okay. And he ends up with 6 penalties over the course of this weekend, right? Like a minute of additional penalty time, right? Add a minute to all of his like laps and everything, all of his race time. Like, what? I think several of them were 10-second penalties too. I think they were like the really strong ones. So I don't know what's going on with I mean, I can understand in the sprint race, you know, he's playing the team games, trying to make sure Hülkenberg and Haas can, you know, collect some points for the Drivers' Championship. That's great. The Constructors' Championship, sorry. But golly, in this one, in like the Sunday race, that was wild to see. He's just like, yep, I'm just gonna dive right in. Yep, I'm okay. There's no room for me. Oh, I'm gonna make, like, get his elbows out a little bit, right? But not in like a fun, not in a good way. I don't know. It was a little sketch, but yeah. So that was Magnussen all weekend long. Moving on from there, yeah, this is a note that I put down. Hard tire is not very good. Hard tire sucked this weekend. It was just really hard to get in, really hard to get it warmed up, and that was a little tough for drivers in particular, like Lewis Hamilton on that. Did not like it. I think Alonso was also on it too, if I remember correctly. There was just a lot of complaints about the hard tire. But yeah, that was pretty crazy to see. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about the safety car. Yeah, the safety car was definitely yeah, the safety car was interesting because it was caused by that crash, the accident between both Sargent Magnussen, right? That's how he's racking his penalties. And this was a prime opportunity for people to pit, and a lot of people did pit. And what this ended up doing, this put Norris in a position where he was leading the race, right? So people come in when they can, that sort of thing. And Norris is put on the hard tire. Verstappen's on the hard tire. And as I said just a couple seconds ago, the hard tires sucked in this race, right? Like they weren't able to get temperature into them really quickly, so you kind of had to like dance with them a little bit, and they could be squirrely, right? So certain cars have certain configurations and just, I think, inherent properties that prefer a hard tire to a medium tire to a soft tire, right? And when I say prefer, what I mean is they can easily warm the tire up, right? And they can help with ensuring that the temperature distribution within the tire is okay, that it's not going to burn out and, you know, just degrade so rapidly, right? And it seemed like the Red Bull was having a hard time with that, right? Max was on the radio complaining about just not being able to turn the car at several points in the race, and there was a point where Norris is up ahead, and I think this was what lap was it? It was like, it had to have been the 30s, like late 30s, right? And Norris is out front, and I'm like, yo, I don't think Max can catch him. Like, and it got to the point where it's like Norris is ahead upon the restart, right? Because they had to collect all the cars. Safety car had to go around and collect Norris, and you know, I'm thinking Max is gonna just immediately overtake, right? But Max wasn't able to do it because Norris was doing a good job defending, but he wasn't abusing his tires doing it, right? And you have Norris just eking out a half a second, a half a second, a half a second, a half a second. So it goes from like 1 point, just 1 second, right? And then Max is outside of the DRS window to 1.3 to 1.9 to 2.5 to 3 seconds to 6 seconds, and then builds up to 7 seconds towards the end of the race, right? And you're just like, oh my god, Lando Norris is about to win. Lando Norris, dude, just like drive it slow, don't do anything crazy. And you can see him doing that towards the last few, and during the last few laps of the race, where he's just like being as gentle with the car as possible, right? And like not hitting any curbs he doesn't need to, because this guy's trying to get his first win. And what happens? The guy does it. The guy gets his first win. Lando Norris wins the 2024 Miami Grand Prix, sponsored by Crypto.com. Tech Bro sponsored, right? It was amazing to see. Max comes in second, and Leclerc rounds out the podium with the third place finish. Oh my god, it was so exciting to see. Like, it was kind of unbelievable, honestly. Like, because I remember it was 2021 where Norris was winning, right? He was leading the race, and Hamilton was behind him, right? But Hamilton had stopped, and he had a pit stop, and I think he threw on intermediates, if it wasn't full wets. Actually, probably intermediates, because we don't do wet racing anymore in Formula One. We're just like, oh no, just red flag it, right? And Norris, there was just like a couple laps left to the end of the race, and Norris was still in the slicks, and he just spun out, and he was just losing his. Oh, it was so sad. It was so hard to watch, because you're just like, Norris, if you had stopped for intermediates, if the team had pulled you in, you would have won that race then, right? But let bygones be bygones. We've learned from history, and here we are now. But yeah, part of me was kind of like, oh no, is he gonna drop it? Is the car gonna cut out on him? Is the engine gonna cut out? Like, is something tragic about to happen, and we end up like seeing like another win just ripped from his hands, And luckily that did not happen, and I'm so happy, because I don't think it could have happened to a more deserving driver. Luck, they always say luck comes to those who are prepared, right? Like, luck is a mixture of opportunity and preparedness, right? And I think Norris is proving himself, and he has been preparing for years and years and years. He's been in Formula One since 2018 now, right? So 6 years. And he was prepared, the opportunity came, and that's your luck. And you can say that it was all down to the safety car, but he has been putting in some excellent stellar performances, and it's about time that those stellar performances have been rewarded, right, with a win, and he deserves it. And I'm so excited for the team of Papaya, because they are showing that they can. It's been a long road back, getting back to the top, and I think that they're knocking on the door. Whether that's a championship, right, a driver championship, or if that's like consistent podiums, like P1, P2s, and wins too, right? So, hoping for Oscar Piastri to get his first win too here soon. I think it's completely possible. Speaking of Oscar, one weird thing that happened, towards the end of the race, his engineer came on and was like, Lando's winning right now, and we don't need you to, we don't need a safety car, right? Granted, Piastri was like in 17th place, because he was having some issues, and I heard that, I was like, that's kind of mean. Like, he knows, like, he can drive. He's not a dunce, like. So, alas, no safety car was caused. Piastri ended up finishing the race, and Norris got his first win. So that was great to see. And I think in particular, where did Piastri finish? Where did you finish, sir? Yeah, Piastri ended up finishing 13th. Yeah. But yeah, it was really, really excellent to see Norris win his first race, and to see him celebrate with his team on the podium afterwards. So shout out to him, shout out to McLaren, and just shout out to Miami for giving us a good race. Like, it was really, really interesting strategy, some fun things going on. It was great to see people not being able to really figure out the tires immediately, and you kind of have to just call audibles, so that always switches things up. Either that or rain, So yeah, I think that's it, really. Let's maybe talk some quick news real quick, and then we'll wrap it up. Oh, weird thing. Yeah, Trump was there, and McLaren was selected as selected as the team to host Trump for the weekend or for the race. And there was a whole hubbub about that, and saw some really good jokes. People saying like, "Oh, why do you choose McLaren?" And someone said, "So he could just blend in." Thought that was nice with Cheeto Jesus there, as some like to call him. Yeah. Okay. So new stuff that I wanted to talk about real quick. The Newey news. It's the news, the story that just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And yeah. So. Where does he go, right? There was an article or a quote from him that came out earlier this week talking about it just getting to a point in your career, in your life, where you're just tired. So maybe he really will just hang it up, right? But it's also possible he could go to Williams, right? And fix that team. He looks at that car every weekend. I'm sure he's like, oh, I can fix that, you know? Like, oh, baby, just one tweak here, one tweak there. He'll be beating the RB21 in no time. Yeah, so he could go to Williams, right? For those of you that have not read his autobiography, How to Build a Car, excellent. I really recommend it. He talks about how he left Williams because of how he was being treated, right? And he wasn't given like the ownership and management stake in the team that he was expecting and was told that he would get. So maybe going there now, he would get that. Maybe that would kind of bring the circle back around. Again, Ferrari's kind of like the obvious one where it's just like, yeah, you've never worked with Ferrari, you've never worked with Lewis, and you get to work with Charles Leclerc. You know, like that's a huge. Those are some items checked off the bucket list, I would say. And then you have McLaren too, right? But then I guess honestly, does McLaren really need that right now? Look at them. I mean, everyone's gonna be throwing money at this guy. Everyone wants it, right? What I do find funny though is that apparently he is so disinterested in Aston Martin that it's not even like they're not even being entertained in conversations. And I guess this is due to his experience with working with them on the Valkyrie project, right? Project Valkyrie. That was a jointly Aston Martin Red Bull project hypercar. I think it was Project Hypercar. I think from a few years back. I might be wrong on whether that was a hypercar now, but I guess he didn't like the interactions with Aston Martin there, so kind of shot themselves in the foot like years ago, and he hasn't forgotten. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's just exciting because we don't know what's gonna happen. DTS season 7. What y'all got? Nothing. Y'all got nothing on this season of just ridiculousness, right? With Lewis going to Ferrari, Carlos losing his seat, the Red Bull implosion, right? Which is like which could probably be a whole 5 episodes on its own, like half the season, right? But ridiculous. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. The Miami GP was honestly really fun to watch. It was dope. Shout out to Lando Norris for getting his debut, his maiden Formula 1 Grand Prix win. And I love that it was a Grand Prix, a real Grand Prix, versus last year Piastri getting the sprint race win, which isn't to say the sprint race win doesn't mean anything. It's just that no one really knows how to really qualify that, like, as of now. Like, I don't know, if the sprint races continue on, right, then I think it'll stand the test of time. It'll be, oh yeah, he won a sprint race. But if sprint races are just kind of a fad and they go away in the next couple of years, then it kind of sucks, because then like, what did it mean, right? But yeah, fun race. Shout out to Magnussen for just like being his authentic self and just getting and racking up those penalties. You know, he's like, yo, I am going to help out the team. If that means I get a black and white flag and I get disqualified from the championship, but I helped my team win some points, hey, I'm all for it. That's impressive. That's commitment, guys. Shout out to VCarb for the best livery on the grid for the weekend. Shout out to Ferrari for teasing us and just making us believers. I don't know who's worse, Ferrari teasing the blue car for the Miami GP, or Alpine with their pink camo, and then what they ended up showing up with. Ridiculous. Shout out Checo Perez for that dive bomb. That was beautiful, and just being so skilled and crafty to make us think it was going to happen and then it not happening. Shout out to McLaren for just bringing some competition to this season. I think this is a 3-horse race between, no pun intended, Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull. Red Bull is a clear favorite, right? But we have had two non-Red Bull wins, right? And we're only 7. This is the 7th race of the season, I believe. 6 or 7 races in. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6th race of the season. So, yeah, I mean that's different. That's a lot better than last season, that's for sure. So we'll see what they can bring, and let's hope McLaren can just keep the foot on the gas and deliver some really fun results for the season. I'm just so happy for Lando Norris. This guy deserves it. I've been a big Lando fan since the beginning, and it was great to see all the drivers come up to him after the race and give him a hug and give him high fives and congratulate him. It's good to see that kind of camaraderie and spirit on the grid. But yeah, guys, that's all. Thanks for listening to this solo episode, Solo Therapy with Iddris. Maybe we should change the name of the podcast to Solo Therapy to Formula Therapy. But yeah, thanks for listening. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you want to hit us up, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and next Twitter, all at F1 or F Off. You can email us at f1orfoffpodcast@gmail.com. You can give us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast, because that really helps us out a lot. It helps us pop up in the search engines that these guys are using. And just be sure to share with family and friends, and we appreciate it. Formula One, just next time, if I can just give a word of advice, please sync and coordinate your calendars with Kendrick and Drake, and make sure that the beef drops don't happen when I need to be watching races, because this was a very hard weekend for that. All right, peace, y'all.